Good evening, everyone. Treasure Troller here on the ride to work for Wednesday, I don't know, the 11th or 12th. So I want to talk about a couple of things. Oh, I forgot. Good evening. Welcome from the mask-wearing militant state of Michigan. Treasure Troller here. Almost forgot. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things today. Just a couple of moronic democratic theories or whatever. First one, I do believe hopefully I got the screenshot on here. It's from Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. If you can see the tweet, it's about the was it Elridge or Elbridge, the Line 5 pipeline, the gas line that, although it's partially shut down, gas prices haven't skyrocketed. So apparently, all's good, and Dana and if it was up to Dana Nessel, they would shut that down completely. It's basically a gas line that runs on the bottom of Lake Michigan through the Mackinac Straits between the upper and lower peninsula. And they'd love to shut that down. So anyways, getting back to her tweet, the partial shutdown hasn't had gas prices skyrocketing. Well, here's another thing that prevents oil prices from skyrocketing, and that is the usage. And when you lock down a state, when you shut the economy down, and you basically give tourists zero incentive to come into that area, well, that takes less gas too. Okay, there was a time there, 2 or 3 months, where it was just essential workers on the roads. The roads were vacant, and gas prices were really low. Usage was down. So this has to do more with probably last quarter's numbers, where everything was basically shut down. The economy in Michigan is still shut down. Places aren't open. It's a very delayed and staggered vacation season. So I don't know where she comes up with this. Apparently when you get your law degree, when they hand you your law degree, they take away your damn common sense and ability to think like a average person. So the second thing is, I talked a little bit about it last time with with Deutsche Bank turning over the financials. I wanted to do a little bit of research on it, and here's what happens. I mean, they want to look a lot of these documents over, and they want to find, shall we say, overvaluations of like Trump properties, where they say it's worth, where Trump says the building's worth $100 million, and of course the pencil neck geek accountants get in there and say, no, it's we think back then it was $25 million. So there's nothing, shall we say, illegal about thinking your properties are worth more than what they are. I mean, everybody thinks their car's worth more than what it actually is when they go into a car dealership. So it's more of like I talked about before, like media crimes. It's not a real crime there. And the other thing too is to even have a crime, there has to be intent. You have to knowingly and willingly go in with the intent to defraud, like Deutsche Bank, to get the money. So there's just a lot of moving parts to even come up with this. This is really nothing more than a way to embarrass and shame Donald Trump. But here's one issue that they haven't really discussed. And, like where I talked before, where Donald Trump, they want his tax returns. They sort of, for whatever reason, think Donald Trump does his own tax returns, sits down with, April 14th and downloads the latest version of TurboTax for real estate magnates and does his taxes. He's got accountants, people that do all that crap for him. But when you're talking about the corporate documents, everything has to go through the board. So Donald Trump can't decide to go out for the corporation, for Trump Corporation, and buy a building without the consent of the board. They can't get a loan without the consent of the board. All the taxes are reviewed by, income, profit, loss are all reviewed and approved by the board. So this idea that Donald Trump is out there sort of doing these things on his own is just ludicrous. And the other thing too is, I just got a feeling that Donald Trump would, if they've got some sort of him on the record saying, well, I'm worth $25 billion or whatever the amount is. And then after all the pencil neck geek accountants get done and they say, well, he's a little bit overestimating that. He's only worth $10 billion. And Trump's going to say, yeah, well, that's what I want you to think. So there's just absolutely nothing to this but trying to shame and embarrass Donald Trump. So I think it goes nowhere. And obviously nothing's going to happen before November. So there's that. I guess the third thing is with the Kamala Harris nominee as vice president. I mean, it's looking bad for my Hillary Clinton nomination. I think the real problem there's a couple problems with having Harris as the vice presidential nomination. First, I've said before, she's from California. I mean, nominating someone from California does nothing to, do anything. California's not a swing state. California was Democratic to begin with. So, in that respect, it means nothing. And I was listening to a radio show today, and somebody said the Harris nomination really does nothing to swing voters to Biden's direction. And I kind of agree with that, but Pence, maybe, I think he's from Indiana, maybe, swaying it, or Ohio, swaying that state, but I don't know if he picked up any more votes than that. But he was there to pick up his home state, and he did it, so there was a little bit more. I'm not sure that him or her not picking up any more votes is a real valid point, because I don't see a lot of vice presidential nominees, gaining substantial votes anyways. The last thing about it is she's usually when you pick a nominee or your vice president, you pick someone that kind of likes the backup role, that wants to wear the cap, carry the clipboard, only wants to get in there in case of an emergency. and certainly not as strong or stronger of a political figure than the presidential nominee. And I think that's where the big problem with Kamala is. And we've talked about before, the vice presidential pick is basically the presidential pick. People aren't really going to know who they're actually voting for, Biden or Harris. And if they're voting for Harris, well, how long is Biden there? It's almost like, I felt bad for him, but Cam Newton was having a tough time finding a football team to be on for a while. And you kind of got to look at it from the perspective of some of the teams that have their starting quarterbacks. Bringing Cam Newton in, you're not really bringing a backup in. You're bringing someone in to, compete for a starting job. So a lot of teams don't necessarily want we've got one quarterback, and we don't necessarily want that type of competition. The old saying, if you got two quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. And so he just had to wait till he got a spot to where he could at least compete for the starting job. I mean, to me, it's the same reason why, well, among others, but Colin Kaepernick never got another chance. First, they don't want the teams don't want the media coverage from basically a backup quarterback, because that's what you would bring Colin in as. But Colin doesn't want to be a backup quarterback. So can you imagine the political spin if Cam's on your team and you're not starting him? It's obviously something that comes down to race, whatnot. So teams didn't want the distraction of Colin. So I'm not sure how this is going to play out with Biden and Kamala. I just think she's way too strong of a vice presidential candidate. When they start talking about who's what, as far as who's the real candidate, they haven't had the official Democratic Party nominee, the convention, the official nominee. So I don't know, anything can happen over the next couple of months. So that's it. Dana Nessel running her up to her silliness again. You got the Democratic Party. Who knows what they're going to do now that Kalama or whatever she wants to call herself, Carella DeVille. Now that they got her in there, who knows? And these financials, I just don't understand why. I just understand that it's not just Trump. Everything has to go through the board. So if one person is, in a sense, misleading, everybody else on the board approved it. If there was intent to defraud, well, then I guess the entire board was trying to defraud. So it's just absolute silliness. So that is a Treasure Troller saying aloha and good day.